So you've had a few mystical experiences, you've had a few altered states of consciousness, and the way you sort of operate in the world may be slightly different now to how it was before you had these experiences. But now what? What happens now? How do you act differently? How do you interact with reality differently now that you've had these so-called mystical experiences? Because it's nothing special. Those type of altered states are available to everybody, particularly now with the rise in the psychedelic movement and ayahuasca, the plant medicine movement down in the Amazon and things like that, moving over to the West. Well, there's nothing special in mysticism or mystical experiences anymore. Maybe 100 years ago and in the past, we could revere these experiences and people who go into the unity consciousness stage and God realization and all that stuff for fleeting moments of time, and we can hold, at the time we would hold these people in high regards, right? We'd have we'd draw halos on their head and all this. That simply is not the case anymore. These experiences, while they've always been available to anybody, they're much more likely in the modern day just because of the access to, as I say, things like psychedelics and the access to information on the internet where content is shared, such as deep meditative practices, things like that, which can alter states of consciousness very, very quickly. But that isn't the same as what waking up is. That isn't what is usually termed enlightenment. They're completely separate things. Mysticism as a rule, or mystical experiences, generally fleet in and out. So you'll hit altered states of consciousness, and then within a week or two, that altered state, if it hasn't been processed properly, or if it hasn't been, once again another bit of a buzzword, integrated into your own being, then sometimes that may leave you with some psychological fractures. You can't really interact with the world as you could beforehand. You might have to come away from work life and your work-life balance is all out. But generally these altered states of consciousness, you come out of them in a couple of weeks, a month or so, and your life goes back to exactly the way it was before. You may become what the world sees as kinder and more compassionate. You might have had a sense of oneness. I'm trying to be careful of using such buzzwords here, but everybody sort of knows what they are, so I'll continue. And when you have that sense of oneness, the way you sort of operate changes, the way you the conditioning that you've picked up may have been shook. So there is definitely a different way of seeing the world. You put a different lens on. But all you're doing is changing one lens for another lens. That isn't waking up in the real sense. That's not real enlightenment in the common sense of the word. And therefore mystical experiences and altered states of consciousness are merely new ways of relating to reality. That's all they are. They're just the sense of me looking at the world differently to what it was before, and therefore it's an altered state. But that isn't waking up. That isn't awakening in the highest sense of that word. Awakening being leaving the dream state, not waking up within the dream, which is altered states of consciousness, and seeing the dream as differently from what you did before, but waking up from the dream. Noticing that you are in a dream and you come away from that dream. Everybody looks like they're zombified in a sense, without trying to be, nasty in any sense. It's as if they're well, it is true that the programs and the belief systems, their opinions, culture, society, all these things is just operating through these people, and that's seen for what it is. Awakening doesn't serve the individual. There is no benefit whatsoever for the individual to wake up. Because waking up is a complete dissolution of the sense of me. There's no me left. There's no I left. And I know a lot of Western philosophy, a lot of Western mysticism, they don't like to hear that because, and I love Western philosophy, I love Eastern philosophy, I've studied them both, I've studied psychology, mental models. If you look back on my channel over the last year or so, I've written, or my website, I've written about them, I've done videos on them. So this isn't to say that they don't serve a purpose here. I'm not saying that. But philosophers and psychologists and everything would be out of business. They wouldn't be able to say anything without a sense of I. Now this is perhaps the most ancient philosophies. You have the Vedantic texts and the Zen. Zen Buddhism are probably the closest to, I'd suggest. But even those you could, we don't know where they come from. They could be before. We put it down to Indian culture, really. It could be before Indian culture, pre-Vedic. I'm getting a bit lost in where this stuff come from, but I actually would suggest that it's actually Atlantean. And it come from what we call the lost paradise of Atlantis or something. I actually think that knowledge is passed on through there. The wisdom. That's sort of by the by, doesn't really mean anything, doesn't matter. But awakening, the removal of self, the removal of the illusion of self, because words trap you here. There is no self to begin with. It's just an illusion within the dream. So psychology and particularly Western philosophy, Western psychology, you look at the Jungian and the Freudian lineage, and we get loads of complex models and, the ego structure and the id, the superego. You look at Melanie Klein, who did fantastic work about childhood development, and how the ego develops through childhood into adulthood and traumas and everything. That's great within the dream. That's egos fixing or putting plasters on egos. It's an illusion, putting a plaster on illusion. Now, people don't want to hear this because there's no practical value, and I couldn't agree more. That isn't what this is about. This isn't about giving you value. This is about the truth. The truth is that you, in the sense of me, is an illusion. There is no me. Me is life happening as a perceived you. And once again, there's no Western psychology won't have this. Western philosophy won't have this. Majority of Eastern philosophy doesn't have this. The Taoists, they'd may appreciate from the Tao Te Ching and stuff. That's probably a text that gets reasonably close to what's been discussed here. So mystical experiences are completely different to awakening. Mystical experiences are the individual relating to reality differently based on, a moment in time or perceived time. They may have done ayahuasca, for example, or, LSD or something like that. The whole reality changes around them and they start relating to that world differently. But awakening is a complete dissolution from I. A complete dissolution from this dream. The recognition that all already is. It's already complete. It's already done. All experience is merely a life happening. There is no observer. There is no witness. That seems a stage that you go through. And there are many stages, apparent stages. They are all illusionary. They don't actually exist as such. It's just life happening. But the linear mind likes to grasp onto things, and it makes things easier for the other person's linear mind to grasp. So we come up with stages of consciousness and levels of consciousness. The truth is that is an illusion itself. Now, I'm a big fan of Dr. David Hawkins. I've done I cover a lot of his work in my work. But he also wrote a book called, I think it was called Devotional Non-Duality or something like that. And based on Dr. David Hawkins' work to do with levels of consciousness, non-duality states, or the very principle of non-duality, radical non-duality, is that there is no levels of consciousness. There is no me, there is no you, there is life happening. And trying to put things onto that life, trying to create a good and a bad, and and a right and a wrong, and all this, that is what traps you into this worldly dream. And I'm wary here not to fall down the Gnostic trap of the world is evil. That's not what's happening here. The world is magic, absolute magic, but not good or bad. It's just life happening. If you are trying to fix the world, if you're trying to keep fixing yourself, if you're on that never-ending search to find something better, or make the world more wholesome or something, you're essentially trying to play something that you are not. You're trying to fix something that is already fixed. If you're trying to become a more compassionate person, you're trying to say that the compassion is not there already. See, this process, an apparent process, because it isn't a process, but this apparent process is a destructive one. It's not a constructive one. You don't keep doing things and then one day you'll get there, because that is in time, it's in space, it's going from there to there. That doesn't exist. This apparent process is destructive. You remove everything. You strip away all beliefs, all opinions, all cultural nonsense that's been rammed down your throat. All the spirituality, that's a big one that you need to drop, is the spirituality thing. It's took me years to get over that, to just put it down. And I quote Lao Tzu, the Buddha, Jesus and whatever, but I'm only going on what these books have said. I have absolutely no idea if that's true or not. And this is one of the things we can do, is to just keep asking ourselves, what is true? What is true? Is this true, or is it a belief? Keep asking ourselves the question, is this the truth? Is this the truth? Not to me, but life, is it true? Because most, if not 99.99% recurring of what we perceive ourselves to be is not true. If you want a happy dream, if you want a nice dream, then, go to therapists and whatever, and feel better about yourself. That's a self-identity. That's not what this is about. If you want to feel good, if you want to, live a nice dream, there's thousands, if not millions of people on the internet, you can go to coaches or anything. If you want to feel good, just go to these people. That's not what this is about. This is about hot knife through butter truth. Not many people want to hear it. There's not going to be many people who get this far into the video because they don't care about the truth. They want to feel good. They want to fix stuff. They want to become more compassionate and loving and all that. That is already there. That's done. By virtue of this life, whole and complete, that's already done. There's nothing you can do to change that. It happens. That is it. It just happens. And I'm not going to get into the free will debate again. Go and listen to another video that I've spoken, on free will and everything. This message isn't about feeling good. It's not about being compassionate to your other men or anything like that. This is about doing and being truth. Okay. I'm running every other Tuesday evening UK time. I'm running just a Zoom call for people who want to hear more about this message, or they just got some questions and queries. Just you can come on and just ask a few questions. Check that out. Check out my Discord server, which I'm just about to start launching now and putting information on there. That'd be cool. Okay, hit that like, hit that subscribe. I'm fairly sure there's not many people out there saying things like this, because people just want to feel good, and feeling good isn't about this at all. So have a great day. I hope you've got something from this.